So, I'm Kyle from Phantom Spotlight. I have the honor of moderating an incredibly talented actress who you may have seen in a few movies, something called, I don't know, Captain America, First Avenger. Anyone see that? Maybe the latest Mission Impossible films? And tons more. Please, put your hands together. Hayley Atwell, everyone.
Hi, wow, what a crowd. Hello, lovely to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Do I leave this where it is, or do I hold it like you're doing?
It's up to you.
Okay,
If you prefer
we'll
to
see how we
hold it,
go.
or you can, there is good
I
too.
might change it up a bit. We'll see. We'll see how the day goes.
There's always choices. So, first of all, how are you enjoying the con?
Very well. I mean, I've been to a few of them, and what I love about them is my background's in theatre, and you're used to having the experience of seeing your audiences live every night. Like, you guys come to watch us, but we can see you if you're in front of us. So we get a sense of who we're telling the story to and how we have to change the story every night to make sure that the audience are with you. But in film, you don't get to do that. So coming to a con, I get to see actual human beings and go, oh, these are the people that are watching the movies. This is so nice. So it's always a pleasure to come to them.
Have you ever gone to a theater to watch one of your movies to watch the crowd and how they reacted?
Well, with the last Mission Impossible film, because notoriously there's no script, and so you make them and you do various different versions of the scene, and you kind of in part make it up as you go along, and you're given dialogue very last minute. But they continue to edit in the same way. So they edit right up until they have to deliver the film. So I didn't see the movie until it was seeing it with a real audience. And we happened to be in Japan, so seeing it in Tokyo for the first time with a predominantly Japanese audience, that's when you kind of get a real sense of what the world thinks of the film. And so it's quite a baptism of fire, like seeing your work up there, but you're seeing it so exposed to people. And luckily it was really fun watching people on the edge of their seats for pretty much the whole film and going, I think people like it.
That is awesome. Plus, having fans worldwide is great, and having people all over the world look up to your characters and use them as role models.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved film since I was a little girl. Like I'm sure most people here, films and storytelling, for me, they're the heart of community and the heart of civilization. The importance of having stories that we can discuss and find cathartic or inspiring or provocative or stimulating and get to talk to with our friends and family. It was so important for me growing up that I saw films where I felt myself represented or felt like there were stories that I related to on some level. And so I knew that going into this profession, I'd get to carry on that experience of connecting with people through storytelling. But I think also, and Tom Cruise talks about this a lot, he doesn't believe there's sort of highbrow and lowbrow. He doesn't believe that film for one particular demographic. They should be for everyone, and there should be something in it for everyone to enjoy. And I think these big franchise films that I've found myself a part of, with Marvel and with Mission, is really a love letter to commercial filmmaking of big spectacles that the whole family can come and see and enjoy and take something from. So there's an accessibility, I think, in these movies, which is that I've felt so enriched by, I think, because I've been doing Marvel now, or have been involved in the franchise, I think, since, some of you guys might know better than I do, but I think like maybe 15 years or something. And so, I've kind of grown up with Peggy Carter as much as audiences who've enjoyed watching her have, and that's really, it's a really sweet thing.
Very nice. And yeah, we've loved watching the various iterations of your character. You mentioned watching films when you were younger. Who were the characters that you really identified with, who inspired you?
Oh, that's a great question. I liked all genre of film. when I was a kid, there would be sort of like just, I mean, I grew up in London, and my parents really loved film and they loved theatre, and they kind of let me see everything, which is very bad. So I was watching things way beyond kind of my age group that would be age appropriate, that I would definitely not do myself with my own children. But for me, for some reason, when I think back to that time, and I think of there were these, you know, the films like Breakfast Club and 16 Candles and these kind of teenage, coming-of-age 80s movies that I saw later in the 90s when I was still very young. But to me, it was like watching teenagers find their sort of rebellious streak and find their own sense of identity. And that's kind of what was available when I was younger. But I also, in terms of who I found inspiring, I went back to the classics. I went back to Katharine Hepburn in Bringing Up Baby, and Bette Davis in All About Eve, and His Girl Friday, and these female characters that I felt were written in the golden age of Hollywood with so much wit and sort of intelligence, and had this beautiful kind of classic femininity, but a real rapport and charisma with their male co-stars. And seeing like people like Grace Kelly and you know, holding their own with these incredible male figures and these kind of Hollywood legends of the time, I just felt, you know, who are these sort of demigods on our screen that look exquisite, but also just seem to have this remarkable speed of dialogue. And I love that. Just that wit between them. And I also loved kind of the heist movies of the 70s. You know, when I was doing Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise talks about he watches a movie a day, and I believe it. I mean, he fits that into his schedule as well as lots of other things. But he really is a fan of film as much as he enjoys being in them. And so we watch things like What's Up, Doc together, Barbra Streisand. Paper Moon was a big one for me as well, and that was a film that I rewatched again recently. And the charm, again, between the two main stars in it, Tatum O'Neal and her dad. I mean, just such incredible chemistry. And also just the kind of storytelling that has a really clear arc, and it's heartfelt, and it's pure cinema, and it feels it was made for a time to be accessible to everyone. So it kind of gives you a few ideas. But then I kind of love the crazy subversive genre of something like the Rocky Horror Show, which I saw way too young. And I would walk around my living room with my mum, and I'd be singing "I'm Just a Sweet Transvestite" at the age of 7. And she was like, "Okay, you go, girl." I'm like, "Yes." I have no idea what this movie meant, but I loved I love how camp it was, and how kitsch it was, and subversive it was, and a real play on B movies. And I love the story of it being an absolute bomb at the box office, and then having a cult following. And I think again, it's an example of many movies that can come out and just, for whatever reason, they don't hit the mainstream, but then there is enough people that follow them, that take them into their hearts, they become beloved moments in culture, that then have this long life way beyond the time in which they were filmed. I just find the kind of the trivia around filmmaking, and the history and the stories around things, how difficult things were to get made, how happy accidents turned films that had done badly into huge sensations globally, or maybe many years after they were made. That's all part of the kind of the glamour behind it all.
Well, I just want to remind people, do not throw any toast, do not throw any rice. This is not Rocky Horror. And when you're talking about Tom Cruise watching a movie a day, I can almost see him like hanging off of a building, and it's like, oh, we got it set for 5. Oh, I'm going to just watch on my phone this movie here. Now, there is a microphone right here, so if you guys have questions, please line up there. I have questions. I mean, honestly, I could do this all day. And while they are getting lined up, I just wanted to ask, how do you feel about Peggy Carter's evolution? You were a intelligence captain in World War II. You turned into one of the founding members of S.H.I.E.L.D. Then in the What If, you became Captain Carter. What do you feel about the different iterations, and how do you actually play them a little bit differently?
It's a great question. When I auditioned for the first Avenger, I remember that the director was just I did the various different scenes, and I had to learn some unarmed combat to see, because of how quickly I could sort of load and unload a gun, and learn a choreographed fight sequence, and just how comfortable I was within my body in terms of her physicality and what would be asked of me. And I think I'm a classically trained actor, so for me what that means is during my degree at university in drama school, it was to find a way of being versatile to adapt to whatever tone I was auditioning for. And so for me, I just kind of went in and did the best I could with the material that I had and my understanding of what that world was, but I had absolutely no idea of who she would become, how she would grow, how she would fit into the world, or the kind of dynamic she would have with Captain America. And that was sort of found as we went along. And I have to sort of give a shout out to Luis D'Esposito, who's co-president of Marvel, and he'd said I walked in with to the audition with like a polka dot tea dress and like a bowler hat on, which I'm like, oh, I vaguely remember that. What happened to that dress? It was a cute dress. And like a pair of brogues. And he was just like, who's this cute little English actress straight out of drama school? And I was just wide-eyed and, just showed up to kind of do the best that I could. And then I think now back, I look at it with such nostalgia and fondness that we have all these years later that, what Marvel became after that point, especially the sort of with what Iron Man had done and how it kind of relaunched this new chapter in Marvel history, and it kind of an explosion of its success of the introduction again of all these characters and reintroduction of some of them, and what they did so brilliantly in that time. And I was just incredibly fortunate to be there at the beginning of that chapter in Marvel's history. And it's not really until I get to meet fans who have followed Marvel and know the intricate details of the metaverse and can explain things to me that I don't understand, that I see sort of how much it's captured the cultural consciousness of so many fans globally, and how it's also brought people together. I've loved going to conventions and meeting groups of people who have become friends through their shared love of the comics or the stories or the characters. I think that's just such a dear and precious way that you can form community and friendships through your shared love of a particular kind of storytelling. It talks to me about sort of the importance of storytelling again in our society, and the bringing together of people through our love of the themes of a lot of these stories talk about, which is modern day mythology to me. It's very, the stakes could not be higher. It's about what does it mean to be a hero, and what is the cost of that in the world, and what are the dark forces that we're facing, and what are the values that we're trying to fight for and keep alive. These are very old, mythical, kind of ancient Greek ideas, really. They're also classic. I just did a play in the West End doing Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing, and I played Beatrice to Tom Hiddleston's Benedict. So here we have another Marvel character in there that loves theatre as much as I do. But we talked about, here we are as Shakespeare actors, but also Marvel actors, and he shares the feeling that the themes of which classical theatre talks about are also the themes that we love about modern day myths within the superhero world. And they're told through this particular kind of medium and genre. But I think what Marvel does brilliantly is just to cast actors who are really passionate about these stories and really respect the audiences and respect the fans and appreciate the loyalty that the fans have shared with us. So, thank you.
And we're glad to have you as part of our community. Am I right, guys?
Oh.
So it looks like we have a couple people who have questions. Please, your name, where you're from, Social Security. No, wait, not that part. Name, where you're from, and question.
Fall River, Massachusetts, about an hour south from here. First of all, His Girl Friday is a great film. Love it. My question is, were you devastated that you were in one of the best trilogies of all time, but didn't get to share a single scene with two British icons, Paddington and Olivia Colman?
Well, I've met them both, so I felt like I got my time in private of adoration and respect. They really are like such like national treasures and permanent fixtures within definitely within the UK, and glad that they've captured the hearts globally. And Olivia is someone that I've known her work on stage and independent movies where she's done such different things from the kind of the comedian that we see today. She's just a formidable talent, and it's another thing that I really appreciate from the work that I do is I get to be in these rooms with people that I respect and admire and try and steal things from. Not physically, I mean, I used to steal a lot on the set of Mission Impossible, but when I meet people, I'm like, what could I steal from your talent that I could maybe use one day in a scene? And Olivia is very contagious in her just her ability to make everyone around her laugh. It's outrageous. I'm glad I didn't have any scenes with her because I wouldn't have gotten through them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And please don't ask what she's taken from set because we don't want her to incriminate herself. There's too many cameras. Please.
Yeah,
Hi, I'm Ken. I'm from Connecticut. You were talking about Mission Impossible earlier, and one of the best scenes from the film is the famous fight scene that you're involved in. And from what I've read, you're very adamant about staying in that scene. Can you talk a little bit about that for what you were going through?
Which one was it?
From what I've read, the one where you were pregnant, and then you were saying that you wanted to stay involved, but you were so far along. But it was obviously a very difficult scene to get through because of how physical it was.
Yeah. Well, the torture chamber scene was something that they kept on going back to because it was so complicated, but it was such an important part of the story because it sort of sets up a lot of what the rest of the plot is. So we shot that over quite a big period of time. I'd look on the call sheet and like, we're going back to the torture chamber? What, did we not complete that? Like, no, we've had a better idea. We want to change something around a little bit. So we ended up shooting that for, I want to say we kept on going back and forth over the space of about a year. So when I started, I was not pregnant. And when I finished, I was 8.5 months pregnant. And I felt like, I don't know if you guys are fans of Monty Python. You'll know the sketch I'm talking about. The guy who eats so much he explodes. And I was like, it's basically the costume I was wearing, and because I looked like him, and when I was pregnant by the end, I was just like in this tuxedo. And I felt like I kind of warbled and wobbled onto the set. And I was like, no, guys, I can do it. I can do the fight scene. And they were so respectful. They're very health and safety conscious. They want to make sure everyone is very comfortable. They would never ask me to do anything I didn't want to. But I was really adamant. I was like, if I feel strong in myself and sensible and responsible enough, I can do this well. And then it means that there's not too much of that. I can always tell. I'm a very visual person, so I can always tell where the stunt persons come in to do something when I watch movies, and I'm a real kind of stickler for it. And so I just thought I didn't want too much of that fight to be a stunt person, and because we all have such a unique sense of physicality that I also thought if I'm capable of doing it, then I should. It would make a great story, and here we are being asked about it. But I do remember on the day, they gave me a bucket with some sawdust in the bottom of it in case I needed to throw up. And I remember, and they're like, okay, just do a little bit and half speed. And I'm like, yeah, but you know me by now. I can't do anything half speed. When I learn a fight, and they're like, let's just do it at half speed. I'm like, but I can't do anything at half. It's either nothing or everything. I can't give anything just a little bit. It's just not how my brain works. I learn things, particularly as stunts. For me, I have to perform it at the speed and the level of intensity that it's going to be required of me, because that's how it then lives in my muscle memory in my body. And so, and that's also how I know I can be brave enough to give something a go rather than, just do it half-hearted. And also, if you do it half-hearted, it looks rubbish anyway. So I was really adamant about that. But you could tell, like, this a predominantly male crew just going, is she okay? Is she okay? and they said, okay, just do what you can. And I went, okay, and I did it. And they were like, oh. Whoa! I was like, yes, I'm not unwell. I'm just pregnant. It's very, very normal. It's the reason why you're here is at some point someone was pregnant. and that's why you're here. Like, it's very, very normal. And they loved it. You know, they appreciated that I was willing to give it a go and throw up in a bucket afterwards. But it's, you know, and it's great to be able to see that on screen and go, yeah, that was, I got to, they trusted me enough by that point that I could just go for it. And yeah, very, very proud to have done it.
That's awesome. Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I just got a note, and I really, really apologize for this, but because of stuff that Hayley is working on in the studios, they actually have asked that we do not have audience questions. So I am so sorry, guys.
Should we do this last one? Is that okay? Yeah?
That's totally up to you.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm so sorry, guys. Hi.
I have a hypothetical for you.
Yeah.
If you could just have all of the rights and the budget for it, what book would you want to turn into a movie?
There's so many. It's so hard to choose. I also feel if I said it, there's going to be someone who's more in a position of power than me to go and buy the rights to it and make into a movie. Well, I mean, is there a book you have in mind you think I should do? Because I'm open to recommendations.
Oh, I love everything by Gail Carriger, so it would be pretty great to see you in Victorian garb with a great big battle parasol fighting werewolves.
Fabulous.
But
I love that. I love the mix of genres there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. There's actually, there was a fantastic article that I read, which is based on a true story. And I don't know if you, there's a beloved poet, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, who wrote the sonnet, "How do I love thee, let me count the ways," and her story's very much about her love with Robert Browning, and they were, you know, a wonderful kind of intellectual poet couple. But the thing that many people don't know, and that I found in this article, was that she once infiltrated a notorious dog napping gang from London's East End who called themselves the Fancy, and they would steal dogs from middle-class women, and then they would fry up bits of meat in opium and then put it in their pockets and bait themselves with it to kind of to attract the dogs, steal the dogs, and then send ransom notes back to the women saying, you know, if you want to see your dog again, pay up. And obviously many women did. And she got caught in this many times, like several times with the same dog. And eventually she had to just go down and find the gang, and sort of just with the power of her, you know, spoken word, she was such a poet, she was able to win her dog back. But I just thought, what a great, crazy idea of having this kind of beloved, you know, quite well-to-do poet going to infiltrate a dog napping gang. I think that'd be quite a fun story.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And you don't have to think about where the camera is or how small the performance has to be based on the size of the lens. You can just focus purely on the sound of your voice. However, that the paradox is, you know, that also creates a lot of pressure of going, I only have this one piece of instrument to convey whatever needs to be conveyed. But then also with something like that, I'm not watching the animation in front of me. A lot of the time the animation isn't ready. So, and also it's just me in a booth. So every time I'm doing a scene, I'm just reading by myself. I'm not hearing another actor speak. I'm not seeing any visual references. I'm not seeing the facial expression of the animation. A lot of the time they'll, as they're making the animation, it depends on when and what I've recorded, they'll sometimes then draw the animation afterwards to match the facial expression to the particular line reading that I've given that they wanted. So it's a very technical collaboration that you're only really in control of those little moments where you get that particular kind of dialogue to do. And then the other thing is there's so much of it, if it's action yet you're static in a booth, you have to generate that kind of breath in your voice where it sounds like you're moving a lot. So a lot of kind of jumping up and down, or there's ones where I've just been moving and I like whacked the microphone because I'm trying to, like, I'm running away from someone or trying to jump onto something, and you just have to make sure that you've got all this energy in your body so it is conveyed through voice. And I love the technical challenge of that. I miss the fun and the magic that can happen when you are reacting to another actor and they do something interesting and you get a chance to kind of deliver something back, and it becomes a sort of like a ping pong back and forth or a game of tennis. And that to go back to sort of the old Hollywood, kind of that dialogue between, the cat and mouse dialogue between those kind of Hollywood greats, that's so satisfying. And it's why I loved working with Tom Hiddleston again in Much Ado About Nothing. So much of their rapport is that they have a battle of wits to defend and hide the fact that they're secretly in love with each other. So they're always trying to outdo each other and outwit each other. And it's so satisfying being an actor opposite someone who can just throw it right back at you and put the ball in your court again. And you don't have that in voice work. So you're working very much on your own and really trying to use your imagination to envision what the world is that the audience are eventually going to see.
Now, I know in live action you have the rapport with the actor and also some opportunities possibly to improvise something. And sometimes like, that's better than what we wrote, we're gonna use that. Have you tried improvising in voice acting, saying, I know this character, let me try it slightly differently?
Well, not really. I think I kind of, I think for me, you know, a lot of the work that I did, especially coming out of drama school, was about the importance of the writer and the text. Especially in theatre, it's so much about the quality of the writing, and then the actor interprets and determines, kind of makes choices based on the material that they're given. So I think I'd always want to respect the writer. I can certainly, if there's a glitch or a struggle that we're having with the scene, or the scene's not quite working, I'll suggest something, or I'll naturally feel that there could be something I can add to it, as long as it's within the world that we've already created. And knowing eventually, you know, anything with film and voice work, it's really a director and an editor's medium. You don't know how it's going to be edited, and when you're on the stage, you are fully in control. So everything that is said in the moment, and you can't go back on. You have to be the editor, you have to be the director, as well as the performer. So I feel like with voice work, I'm really just very mindful that this is first of all come through the incredible hard work and talent of the writer. And so if I was going to improvise, it's always going to be an open dialogue about what serves the writing best.
Excellent. And you've also worked in the television genre plus movies, which can be a little bit different in the way that they work. Movies, obviously you have a longer time to work on it. Television's usually more of a deadline. Which format do you find more challenging?
I think the format isn't so much as challenging as it's a case-by-case situation. I did an adaptation of Howard's End that was adapted by Kenny Lonergan, and he writes so specifically that he'll come and he go, you've missed out the comma in that line delivery. And you're like, oh, wow. And he can hit, because he writes dialogue as if it's music, a musical score and a rhythm. And then there were certain scenes where the script would be, one page would be my dialogue and the other page would be the other person's dialogue, because there'd be so many interruptions that he might as well write us both like monologues and that we just kind of speak over each other. And that carries its own kind of challenge, but it's very then different to something like Mission that has no script. It has ideas, and it has process, and it has big set pieces of where it needs to land, and obviously the formula of an action spy adventure that's got to meet certain points within the story. But beyond that, they're kind of you're throwing out ideas every day and seeing what sticks. And so it's not so much like which one do I find more challenging, because they're all so different, because they're all, of course, made up by different groups of creative teams that work in a particularly unique way. I would say that the through line for that, for me, is that to be adaptable to whatever story it is you're telling within the rules and the world of that story is really important as an actor, and really important to develop range so that you are capable of going in and doing lots of different things, or knowing that that I can work with a very strong set text within like the iambic pentameter of Shakespeare, or the very specificity of Kenny Lonergan, who honors the comma, versus then someone like Chris McQuarrie, who didn't have a character in mind but wanted to work with me, and so thought, well, I'll create the character around the things that you do naturally every day, and then I'll shape the character through what I can see you doing. So then I'm like, well, okay, I have to be then totally open and malleable to his process, and that takes a lot of trust in the people that I'm working with. So I'd say like the challenge really is to be adaptable, to be able to do it all, because I'm very greedy and I want to do lots of different things.
Definitely. And you're talking about the adaptability. I have to ask, with Mission Impossible, you had to evolve your character through the course of the movies from being this, super talented spy, thief type person to actually changing allegiances and becoming an IMF agent. How did you approach that evolution of that character?
It feels like for her, the first one it's essentially a metaphor for Hayley Atwell trying to get out of a Mission Impossible film. Like my character was just constantly trying to get away from him or undermining him or undercutting him. And that's where the tension was. Some people are like, why can't you just stay with him? Like, you're being so annoying. Like, because if I did what he said, there would be no story. Like, you have to start from somewhere and end something different to have an arc. And so, and also the idea, how many times have we seen sort of like, okay, you're the token woman beside the guy, and you're going to run with him and smile when he wants you to smile and be the object of desire for him. And so we were trying within the confines of something what is very conventional to have a character also that wasn't driven by a romantic agenda too, which we often see so obviously in films like that where a male and female are paired together. And I found that was quite interesting because I think there is something in those films that really lends itself to the power of platonic love and a team spirit that's based on respect and companionship, and also being together working for a common cause. So it's not just here's an object of desire, how does he get her at the end of it, but she's working out, how do I go from someone who has been clearly so terrified and hurt by the world that they've had to shut themselves off from being part of anything, and who's a lone wolf and doesn't trust anyone, to someone who actually understands the cost of caring, which is that as soon as you care about someone, you have that human sense of belonging, which is so important to our own survival and sense of well-being. But then the cost is, well, the danger of losing ourselves or losing them, or hurting them or harming them in some way. And so that felt a bit like the kind of emotional journey she goes on a little bit. Not to sound too sort of like kind of intellectual about it, because it was still me just running away from Tom Cruise and then saying like, sorry, I trust you now. Can I be one of the team? So that's it in a nutshell. But it was, I loved working with them. It's lovely to be in a room with incredibly powerful people who are, as I said before, just as much fans and audience members themselves of great films as people who want to make films as well. And their goal is always, always, always to delight and entertain. That's what they're there for. And if it doesn't land on screen, you try something else until they've got the movie that is going to make people sit on the edge of their seats. And that's always their goal. And they're always willing to also to look back and see what didn't work the last time and how they can grow and evolve. And I think there's something very important about that, about always having the sense of a beginner's mind. I'm like, I don't know anything. I'm going to work out what I can do better next time, but I still have so much to learn. There is still lots I can learn from other movies and other filmmakers, and they have this mentality which I think that keeps them very hungry and keeps them quite childlike, so they're not kind of like going, I know how to do this. There's no sense of sort of I suppose that they've climbed the highest mountain. As soon as they get to the top of that mountain, they see the other bigger one over there and like, oh God, here we go. And they're down the other side and up that other mountain. So they're always challenging themselves, and it was I think a very healthy environment to work in that way.
Absolutely. And you speak of learning, and with these roles, I imagine you've learned, you were talking about like putting together a firearm for Captain America, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that you learned through the Mission Impossible films. Are there things that you learned on set that changed you in real life that you decided, oh, I like this, I'm going to do this, or someone on set introduced you to something that you now do that wasn't part of your life before?
Oh yeah, it's kind of hard to define it really. I think Tom Cruise's thing is very much like leadership is about service. So for him, it wasn't, I'm number one, you will follow me. It was, how can I help everyone in their own department thrive so that what we are creating is the best we can collectively create together. And I think that he knows that if anyone if anyone doesn't feel that, they're not going to know exactly how to bring that much to what they're doing, and also to feel proud of what they're doing. And I think maybe before I was working on Mission, it was a very strong sense of sort of the craft of acting, whereas then working with a team as big as Mission, I'm getting a sense of what each department does differently, and it's huge. The amount of people that are involved in any kind of movie. And I think when I was younger, if I'd known what the other departments that existed, I probably would have pursued that as well. Like, focus pulling and camera operator and prop master and locations manager and down to catering and to do costume and makeup and hair and obviously the visual ones, but also all the things that go behind the scenes that make something work. Just sometimes thousands of people who are employed just in one movie or franchise alone. And when those credits go up, it's a real kind of a moment of respecting all the brains that have gone into creating these stories for people.
Very good, very good. Now, I do want to kind of change gears and talk about conventions, because you've been doing a few of them. Are there any very memorable fan interactions that you've had?
I always, when someone's had a tattoo of me, or like especially like of a drawing someone's done for them of my face, and then tattoo, the commitment is amazing. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I should apologize to them or like congratulate them. It's really, I love people who are passionate, and whatever it is that they're passionate about, as long as it's, wholesome and does good things in the world, I'm here for. I think it's wonderful. There was a thing that I used to do at the end of conventions, because often I'd find that it would be in towns I hadn't been to before. I really got into escape rooms, and I still am so crazy for them. And I'm a real nerd for escape rooms, and I feel like I've shared that with quite a few people at conventions as well. I'm like, oh, you were my people too. Like the puzzles and games and with story behind them, I think is so fun. So I feel like I'm an audience member there as well. But I also know meeting kids as well who have been called after my character's name, or the tagline, I know my value, seems to have landed with a lot of people, and how that has they've taken that into their lives in some way. It's beautiful. I'm an actor for hire. I'm not someone who I'm a custodian of this role. I don't identify with her outside of what I have been asked and invited to become part of, and outside of my playing of her, she really exists in the minds of people whose whatever she says or does resonate in some way. So I think for me it's also like hearing the stories back from people at conventions about what elements of this character or this franchise or this world has done for people. And like I said before, it's brought people together, and it's through stories we get to kind of play out our own ideas about who we are as people and what matters to us, and who we care about, what we're fighting for. And I find that very moving, and I find that a real privilege to be on the receiving end of, to hear those stories. And so it's the reason why I'm here today, and I'm so grateful that I get to do what I love. I love my job, but the real gift is being able to then meet people who connect with it in some way and have their own experience of it. They go, yeah, that's me too. That's what I feel. That's what I believe, or that challenged me in some way. And then for me, the world gets a little bit more kind of connected and easier. I'd much rather kind of walk through the world with lots of people, all us kind of together, finding common ground. It makes life more meaningful.
And how many Captain Carter cosplayers have you seen?
I remember the first Comic-Con I went to in San Diego, and I think it was just after my show had been announced, and it was just an ocean of red hats. And I was like, wow, is Paddington here? Can I go meet Paddington? Yeah, and that was, and I could see a red hat here and other outfits as Peggy, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's just like, this is, these are important characters in people's lives, and as they, it's wonderful to have facilitated that in some way, in my own small way.
Well, yeah, I've seen quite a few, and of course there's some, that Captain America guy, whoever, he's kind of a minor role in your journey. Speaking of your journey, are there any projects coming up that you can discuss?
Do you know what? I'm having a lovely summer doing nothing. Thank you. I think it's Emma Thompson once said this, just to name drop. But like she said it's really important to work, especially as an actor, because you don't. And I think every actor, at whatever stage they're at, doesn't fully let go of the, am I going to work again, or if I work again, will it be as good as the last? Like there's always going to be that little bit of not knowing, because we are going from job to job. But she said it's really important to work, but she said it's also equally important not to work, and to have that downtime, to be in the world, not associated with an element of performance, but to be expanding your own interests and escape room missions. And reading and doing very little, I think, and how meaningful it is to be very just everyday ordinary life, and life itself is enough. And getting a chance when I can like this to travel as well. That's really important. I think maybe when I was younger there was definitely a sense of what's the next thing I've got to do, and I've got to be busy all the time, and I've got to feel like I'm doing something of use in the world. And I think that was sort of a level of sort of anxiety and perfectionism, which would stop me from sometimes just relaxing and doing nothing and going like, that's okay. That's okay too. And I feel like, yeah, I've had I did 8 shows a week of Much Ado About Nothing for 3 months, and on Sundays I was doing reshoots of Mission Impossible, and I moved house with a newborn baby, and then went on a press tour of Mission Impossible, and now I'm here, and I'm like, I think that's enough for this year. I think I could maybe just go for a cup of tea with a friend, check in on my mum, and just go, it's like enough now. There can be a feeling a bit like when someone's been training for a race, and they've been working so hard for it, and they get to the end of that race, and they've got so much adrenaline and there's so much training in them that they want to keep going, and the idea of sitting on a couch, they'd kind of implode because they've just got so much energy. And I think a lot of these big franchises, they do take a lot. They're adrenalizing, and they are exposed to the world in a level where you feel like you get a lot of energy back from people watching it. So it's important to have that downtime where the nervous system settles a little bit, and you can empty yourself of all of the noise, so that then you have a little bit more to offer, hopefully, the next job you get, if and when that ever happens. I don't know. Who knows? I know.
Well, everything that you have done on screen that we've seen has definitely energized these people, made their lives a bit better. I want to thank you for spending this time with us, and everybody, please give it up for Hayley Atwell.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Visit her at her table. I'm sure she has some other.